All right, let's jump right into this explainer and decode the literal mechanics of psychological suffering. We all know that overwhelming, chaotic cloud of emotional pain, right? But what if I told you it actually operates exactly like a machine? Today, we're going to take that vague, unmanageable feeling and transform it into a structured system that we can actually understand and, more importantly, actively manage. To figure this out, we've got to start with a pretty bold question. What is the exact anatomy of human suffering? Shifting our perspective like this changes the whole game. We're looking at emotional pain not as a personal failure or some sort of weakness, but as an observable, biological and psychological machine with moving parts. And just like any machine, if we understand how the gears turn, we can figure out exactly how to slow it down.
And that brings us to Edwin Schneidman's absolutely brilliant clinical concept of psychoche. He defined it as an extreme, unsustainable emotional condition that usually stems from a negative self-appraisal. This is absolutely crucial because it proves that psychological pain is the central mechanism of profound distress. It's not just a passive symptom of something else, like depression. It's the core engine of our suffering when our vital psychological needs are blocked. So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the architecture of psychology, move into processing grief and loneliness, navigate workplace frustration, heal intimate relationships, and finally, lock in the cognitive restructuring protocol.
Section 1. The architecture of Psycho-K. Let's look at the absolute foundation of how acute emotional distress actually escalates in the mind. So, Schneidman's cubic model is a real game changer because it breaks our pain down into 3 highly manageable dimensions. First, we've got pain, which is just that raw, subjective hurt. Then there's perturbation, which is that intense mental agitation that narrows your focus until you feel totally trapped. And finally, press, the actual external stressors pushing down on you. Now, if all 3 of these hit a 5 out of 5, a person is in an unsustainable crisis. But here's the beauty of this model. You don't actually have to fix everything. Reducing the severity of just one of these 3 compounding facets can immediately stabilize a crisis. It is incredibly empowering to realize you just have to lower the pressure in one single column to catch your breath.
Section 2. Processing grief and loneliness. Let's explore the everyday friction we all experience by looking at the dynamics of grief and the systemic nature of loneliness.
When it comes to profound loss, there is a stark contrast in how we cope. On one side, we have the intuitive griever. These are the folks who ride the emotional waves and express their feelings openly. But on the other side, we have the instrumental griever, who channels their pain into building a wall, organizing files, or maybe fixing a sink. Friction so often sparks in our relationships when we misinterpret an instrumental griever's active, task-focused behavior as coldness or denial, when in reality, that's simply their natural, cognitive coping mechanism hard at work.
Now, loneliness is kind of fascinating because it's rarely just about physical isolation. It actually operates as a closed cognitive behavioral loop, completely driven by a hypervigilance to social threats. It goes like this. Your negative thoughts create literal physical distress, which leads you to avoid people, which then strips away the exact social evidence you need to prove your negative thoughts wrong. You end up trapped in this loop, absolutely starving for connection but terrified of reaching out. But by identifying the specific cognitive distortions driving that loop, we can break free. Sometimes we fall into all or nothing thinking, right? Things like, no one wants to be around me. Or we do mind reading where we just automatically assume people view us negatively. And let's be real, unless you literally have superpowers, mind reading is almost always a trap. Then there's catastrophizing, where you believe every single social attempt will end in total disaster. Spotting these means we can use behavioral activation, basically scheduling small, low-stakes social interactions to disrupt the loop and slowly rebuild that connection.
Section 3. Navigating workplace frustration. Let's pivot to the office, an environment where our personal pain directly collides with performance pressures and organizational goals. Have you ever wondered why falling short at work hurts so deeply? Well, when expectations fall short, we experience intense disappointment. Self-discrepancy theory defines this as the painful gap between our actual self, who we currently are, and our highly aspiring ideal self, who we desperately wish to be. When that gap widens because of a missed goal or some harsh feedback, the brain processes it as a profound devaluing of our core identity. To really understand the raw impact of emotional pain on workplace performance, consider this jarring metric. Research shows that during the first 6 months following a major loss, grieving employees operate at an average of only 70% of their normal capacity. Think about that. For an entire year, someone you work with might be carrying an invisible weight,
that slows everything down. This proves exactly why compassionate management isn't just a nice perk. It's an absolute structural necessity for organizational stability.
And this leads us directly to the mechanics of goal blocking. If a leader feels blocked by their subordinates, they are statistically way more likely to adopt destructive, abusive supervision styles. But if they feel blocked by the organization itself, by red tape and bureaucracy, they tend to exhibit role neglect, or they just simply leave. Organizations absolutely have to implement targeted structural solutions like joint problem solving or streamlining processes before that everyday frustration turns toxic.
For professionals constantly facing the neuropain of rejection, we've got this incredible framework called the Rejection Handle Protocol. It acts as a systematic if-then tool to instantly override your brain's negative bias. First, you assume positive intent about the other person. Second, you literally say aloud, best thing that could have happened, to interrupt that disappointment pathway. Third, extract learning by asking yourself, what did I just learn? And finally, run a halt check. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? If yes, step away. This simple checklist instantly shifts your focus back to controllable inputs.
Section 4. Healing Intimate Relationships. Let's move to the highest stakes environment for emotional pain, our intimate partnerships, where unspoken expectations create the deepest vulnerability.
To resolve relationship-damaging cognitive distortions, like those rigid should statements we all make, couples can rely on some highly practical cognitive behavioral toolkits. First, there's active listening, where you simply reflect back and validate what you heard without getting defensive. Then, there's the 90-second rule. Get this, it literally takes exactly 90 seconds for stress hormones to completely flush out of your bloodstream. So when triggered, you mutually pause in total silence for 90 seconds to let your biology reset. Finally, implement daily gratitude rituals to reinforce what is actually working. These tools actively rebuild emotional safety when the friction gets just a little too hot.
Section 5. The Cognitive Restructuring Protocol. We're going to distill all these varied pain points into one universal, actionable master toolkit.
This 5-step actionable cognitive restructuring protocol is your absolute blueprint for dismantling automatic negative thoughts. When pain hits, step 1, record the objective situation. Step 2, identify the strongest feeling. Step 3, catch the automatic thought right behind it. Step 4, check the factual evidence for and against that thought. And step 5, change it to a balanced response. By doing this, you are literally rewiring how your brain processes distress. Imagine an employee who just missed a major promotion. Naturally, they feel dejected. Their immediate automatic thought is, I'm never going to get ahead. But by systematically checking the evidence, they realize they actually have high-value skills. And this single role isn't the only pathway forward. Changing that thought from, I'll never get ahead, to a balanced, objective response like, this is disappointing, but I can identify skills to improve, instantly restores their personal agency. The emotional pain is transformed into a strategic plan. I want to leave you with this final, vital thought to chew on as you step back into your day. How are you going to use cognitive restructuring to reframe your next moment of frustration? Because you are now fully equipped with the structural tools to transform your own psychological pain into a profound strategic advantage. Start looking at the mechanics of your thoughts rather than just feeling the heavy weight of them. Thank you so much for diving into this explainer with me, and I will catch you on the next one.